So on today's show, we've got the great coach Dale Carlson. He's been coaching football for over 40 years, all throughout the country, college, pros, all different levels. We're going to talk about Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and this meteoric rise that they've had. It's crazy to think about how quickly things have turned around in Philadelphia. So we're going to get his coach's perspective on how we've gotten to this point and what these guys are going to have to do now that their expectations have changed. I mean, we're not looking at anything but a Super Bowl now. So trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms, especially on the YouTube page. Make sure you head over there. Hit the like button, the comment button, and hit the subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate it. It's the best place to also get interactive with the show. Ask your questions and comments, thoughts, concerns, whatever it may be. And today's a great day to get questions in because we've got a very special guest here today. We've got Coach Dale Carlson. Coach, how you doing this morning?
Phil, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad to have you back on the show. It's been a little while since we've had you on, but you know it's a great time in Philadelphia to get a really good coach's perspective on what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, well, of course, you know, I'm a diehard Bears fan, and so it's going to be a rough weekend. But I tell you what, the Eagles, talk about an impressive run this season. Just tremendous, and they're a lot of fun to watch. Having a little bit of internet, their Wi-Fi problems here, but they're a lot of fun to watch. And of course, I live in Indianapolis, so I haven't had a chance to see all of their games, but the ones that I've seen, what a tremendous turnaround. And I think I said this last time I was on your show. They got the right guy, I think, in Nick Sirianni. And all you have to do is you got to look at the Colts offense the last 2 years. They've struggled mightily without Sirianni here. And I think he's just done a great job in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so talk about Nick Sirianni a little bit. So when he came to Philadelphia, I mean, he was not – I mean, you look at all the guys that were hired that year or that were in the coaching interview process. Some of them got hired this past year. You had Staley out in with the Chargers. You had Dan Campbell. You had Josh McDaniels, who ended up going to the Raiders. You had a lot of guys with a reputation that preceded them. Nick Sirianni didn't really have that national reputation, and he was taking over an Eagles team that had 4 wins last year, got them to the playoffs. It was a questionable season. Did they do great? We still had unknowns, and then to quickly turn around. I mean, 12-1. I mean, the expectations have gone from making the playoffs to maybe winning the division to now at 12-1. It's a Super Bowl or bust kind of mentality now in Philadelphia. As a young coach, like how do you change? Do you change anything? What you're doing on a week-to-week basis? Do you have to worry about these guys getting ahead of themselves a little bit? Like what's going through a young guy like Nick Sirianni's mind right now, trying to balance out the week-to-week, coaching, but also the expectations that have massively changed?
Well, yeah, it's true. It's true. He probably didn't have the name that maybe fans would like to see, but I think when you look at his coaching chops and what he was able to do in terms of developing the Colts offense and what they had done to get into the playoffs, do some of the things that they did. Again, he was the right guy at the right time for the right team. It seems. Now, so what is he telling his players? I think he's telling them what every coach says. It's 1 week at a time. It's one play at a time. It's one quarter at a time. And my guess is, that's the message that's going through, the Eagles locker room right now. You can't get ahead of yourself. And I think even, I saw a little bit of the press conference with Hurts yesterday, and he finally said it then. He said, I gave you all a chance. You didn't ask me about the Bears defense. And I think that's the mentality. You see it right there. Hurts is saying, wait a minute. I know the Bears are 3 and whatever, but they've been in close games. Their defense fights. They might not have all the star power, but we're going to have to do our thing, play it one play at a time, one quarter at a time. Now, I'm sitting here, and as I said at the beginning, I mean, I'm a diehard Bears fan, and it's killing me. But I mean, should the Eagles put a hurting on my Bears? Yeah, probably. But I think you see that attitude right there. And I think that comes from, he's a young guy. I think that comes from the leadership of the head coach and the message that is getting, put through the locker room from the coaching staff.
Is it really that simple? As long as the coach, because you mentioned Jalen Hurts' press conference yesterday, and is it really that simple? As long as the head coach and the quarterback are leading that with that kind of a attitude, that it just trickles down instantly. Because I mean, you think about it, Nick Sirianni's still a young head coach. He's in his second year. Jalen Hurts, all the question marks that surrounded him coming into this year, and we'll get to Jalen Hurts specifically later. But there's a lot of veterans on this team as well. You've got guys that have won Super Bowls in 2017 with this Eagles team. As long as your coach and your quarterback are setting the tone like they are, is it really that simple to keep everyone focused?
You know what? Sometimes we think this game is rocket science, and it's not.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the simplest things that get you there. Now, I've never been an NFL head coach, but I've led college teams, deep into playoffs. Some were, first time we've ever had the teams there type of thing, but senior dominated. And it is. It's like, what? It doesn't matter what you did last week. We can't worry about what's going to happen a week or 2 weeks or a month down the road. We got to take care of business today. And I would bet anything that those veteran players, that's the message that they're putting out there. Because, I mean, who thought the Philadelphia Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl when they did a few years ago? And my guess is those guys were like, you know what? That's 8 weeks away. We can't worry about what's going to happen there. We got to take care of business right now. Make sure we're home field, all those things that you want to have, going into the NFL playoffs. But yeah, I think really, Phil, so many times it is that simple.
So I don't know if you saw this one last year, but Nick Sirianni, I mean, last year as his rookie coach, I mean, there was a lot of question marks around him, obviously. And about midway through the season, he had a press conference where he talked about flowers and growing the roots and watering the plants. And there was this whole, I mean, Philadelphia media blew it up. The fan base blew it up, thought it was kind of crazy. And it was like this out of left field, like analogy that he gave in a press conference on what he told his players, that don't worry about the wins or losses right now. We're building the foundation, basically, is what it was. But the way he described it and the way he gave it to the players, I mean, 40 years ago, when you started coaching, did you have to use like crazy, weird analogies to motivate your players? And now you think we made fun of Nick Sirianni, and now he's 19-4 since he gave this flower analogy speech to his players. It seems like to me that that's probably not the way coaching was done probably 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah, for sure it wasn't. I mean, when I first started out, you would never talk about cultivating flowers or anything like that. But we're at a different time, and I think even so, just dealing with the media, sometimes you're, whether he actually said that to him or how he said it to him, but I think we're in such a soundbite media centric age right now in sport, that I think coaches that are creative and can come up and say those things. You give the fans something to talk about, you give the media something to talk about, you give Twitter something to talk about, and you can go back in and focus on your message. Now, maybe he did say that to his players.
Oh, he did.
And if he did, that that's great. I mean, you think about it, and I guess I look back at this. I'm a longtime air raid coach, so the passing of Mike Leach this week, hit home. But you think about some of the crazy things that Mike Leach talked about, and you never heard of coaches doing those sorts of things. And I think Mike, whether it's swing your sword or I'm going to send them home to their girlfriends, they can cry or whatever. I think those types of things maybe sometimes is taking a little bit of heat off your players and off the situation, and let them focus on me and crazy things I'm saying, and then let's go back and let's just go to work. And like you said, since he said that, they're 19-4, so it obviously was good timing with using that with the media and getting fan base all riled up.
I was gonna bring up Mike Leach there. I mean, it's really sad news. I mean, he's a legend in the coaching, especially in college. Really sad to hear about his passing. What did he mean? I know it's off subject to the Eagles and all, but what did he mean overall to the sport itself of football? Because I mean, he was very. I mean, obviously the air raid offense was innovative at its time when it first started, but I mean, it's kind of set the precedent of what college football across the board is, and you're starting to see it matriculate into the NFL a little bit as more college guys get into calling plays and offenses in the NFL.
Well, I was very lucky. It was my first school I was a head coach at, a little college up in Wisconsin, Lakeland College, and it was 1989, and we are going to play Iowa Wesleyan. It was Hal Mumme and Mike Leach's first year at Iowa Wesleyan, so I saw the air raid from its beginning, and of course I ended up adapting it as I went along, and I'm good friends with Hal Mumme. You know, I coached with Hal Mumme in the spring league a couple of seasons ago. I did not know Coach Leach very well. I'd met him. I've talked to him. But being in that system and being around that type of football, it's just amazing what he did. And it started in the high schools in Texas. You know, when he went to Texas Tech in 2000, they were still running a wishbone in a lot of schools down there, and he turned Texas into spread offense. Nirvana at the high school level, and of course, it just kept going through the college level, and all the assistant coaches that worked for Coach Mumme and Coach Leach, who have gravitated through major college football. But you see their influence in the NFL today, and when NFL coaches, and they always like to talk about they don't want to be system guys and all this stuff, but the drove of NFL coaches that go to talk to Hal Mumme and went to talk to Mike Leach over the years about the air raid offense, it's incredible, and you see those concepts all the way through the NFL, the NFL today. So I mean, the influence that both of those guys had. Mike probably took it from the two back look and the old BYU stuff to the one back, and really put that whole spread one back formation things to the forefront of every level of football today.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it's crazy, and I love talking about like the evolution of football and how like guys like Mike Leach have changed it. But I kind of feel like to get back to the Eagles a little bit, you see an evolution with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. And is there a scenario where Jalen Hurts is proving the narrative wrong that a running mobile quarterback can have success? Now, until a mobile quarterback wins a Super Bowl, I guess there won't be, a definitive answer on that. But over the years, everyone has always said the Cam Newtons of the world, the Donovan McNabbs of the world, going back further, that the running quarterback couldn't win, big picture in the NFL. But now you got Jalen Hurts. I mean, obviously Kyler Murray just had the awful injury this past week. You have Lamar Jackson. You've got a different style of running quarterback now, one that can actually throw the ball as well. And the success the Eagles are having this year in their offense. I mean, some weeks Jalen Hurts is throwing for 350 yards. Some weeks they're running the football for 350 yards. They're showing that you can win and dominate both ways. Is this going to be a new trend in the NFL where,
I
people
don't know
aren't
if it.
afraid to look at those kind of athletic quarterbacks?
Well, I think that's very true. I mean, all you have to do. I mean, and I think people were scratching the surface. I mean, you can go back to Michael Vick, you can go back to Donovan McNabb. Obviously, Cam Newton had some early success, got to a Super Bowl, didn't win it, but all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes shows up, and you talk about a player that can flip a game, whether it's his arm or whether it's throwing the football. And I think even when you look back at Hurts and even at Justin Fields, they're going to be on the same field at the same time. You look back those Ohio State offenses; those guys weren't just running the football at Ohio State; they were throwing the ball and they were throwing it effectively. Now you can argue who is the better passer: is it Hurts, is it Fields, whatever. I'm not going to get into that deal, but I think the key, as you just said. I mean, Hurts has already thrown for over 3,000 yards. You've got, a 1,000-yard receiver on the Eagles roster, plus another player who might get there. before the season's over, at least through the playoffs. You've got a 1,000-yard tailback, and you've got Hurts who can run with the football. So you talk about putting stress on the defense. Those guys put stress on the defense, and I think looking forward, the Eagles and the Bears game. I think the big difference between the Eagles and the Bears right now is Hurts has those weapons on the outside where he's you've got to respect him throwing the football. I don't know if the Bears just aren't at that point yet at the receiver position. To give the respect that Fields needs, to be able to throw pass. But yeah, I think that if you have that type of player, yeah, that player can win a Super Bowl. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that you're going to see a player like that win a Super Bowl.
40 years of coaching, probably not to make a bad joke, but 60 plus years probably as a fan of the game. Have you ever seen someone take the jump in their skill set? Because Jalen Hurts went from, a second round quarterback that he was going to be a backup career quarterback to taking over a team, having a good season last year, but a lot of question marks on what he could do. And then he went and put the work in this offseason. And you see it clearly. I mean, it's night and day. His pocket presence, he's reading defenses. He every check mark that was questionable about him, he fixed and worked on in the offseason and got better. And he didn't just go from like A to B. He skipped B, C, D and went right to the top of the, peak with what he could do. Have you ever seen anything? Because in my 40 plus years as a football fan, I don't remember any football player ever taking that quick of a jump in their success and skill sets.
Yeah, well, again, I think there were some tools that were there with Jalen Hurts. There was the incredible athletic ability. There was a strong arm, and so what it comes into, when you get to the highest levels of football, it's what you just said. It's putting in the work. It's working on your craft. It's being very serious about how and the type of football player that you want to be. And I think you do. You can look through the history. I mean, who thought Tom Brady was going to be Tom Brady back when he was a 6th round draft pick? They show the pictures of what he looked like at the combine, and there's a story about Brady back with the Patriots where he would, after the end of practice, he was running the scout team. He would grab the scout team and the practice squad receivers, and they would stay out, and he would go through that week's game script, the Patriots' regular game script, and he would go through all the situations, make all those throws, and he would do that day after day after day to eventually prepare himself to get there. And I think that's the key. It's, are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to put in the preparation? A lot of people say they want to win and they want to be the greatest and all that stuff. Are you willing to put the work in? And obviously Jalen Hurts went and has done that this year. And he showed some flashes of that last year, I think, when they started that run to get to the playoffs. But, what he's done so far this year is incredible. And he's a lot of fun to watch as a fan. There's no doubt.
It's interesting because I've talked about it since the day I was a fan of Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama still, before he went to Oklahoma. I've always loved his intangibles. I saw that leadership and that work ethic and that drive, that chip on the shoulder from day one. So I was always a fan of his. But he was obviously not, if you look at guys when teams are drafting quarterbacks, they're looking for the next guy with the next Tom Brady arm or the next Peyton Manning arm, the next pure quarterback. And when you look at teams when they draft, they reach for these guys. I mean, I don't want to put any quarterback in the NFL down, but you got people reaching for like the Zach Wilsons with the New York Jets or, Kyler Murray, guys that are pure talented. And they pass over guys like a Jalen Hurts because they're not pure, but it was clear that Jalen Hurts had that extra intangible. Do you think teams should maybe focus a little bit more when they're evaluating talent and who's the better leader versus who's the better thrower of a 30-yard out pattern? Because you could teach that. You could teach better footwork. You could teach, reading a defense. You can't teach those intangibles. That's something I've been saying since day one with Jalen Hurts. Is that true? And do you think teams should be evaluating that aspect of a player a little bit more than they are?
I think they do evaluate that, and I think that's a very important part of what they're looking for in a quarterback, because you've got to have a leader. You need to have somebody who can direct and win the locker room. But I think the issue comes down with is all these evaluations and all this stuff. It's a very inexact science, and from college recruiting all the way up to being in the NFL. It's an inexact science, and sometimes some players, are going to step up and surprise you. Some are going to be complete busts. I mean, you think about all these number one draft pick quarterbacks that over the years that maybe started a handful of games, never made it, were career backups or in the league. I think it's an inexact science. Now, yeah, there are things you're going to look for in arm strength and feet and quickness and athletic ability. But I think what you're starting to see is a trend towards finding that quarterback who can make throws, who can do those things, but is just a little bit more athletic. Because let's face it, I mean, those guys coming off the edge have gotten so much better over the years. And if you have a quarterback that's just a statue standing back there, and I mean, I think in going back, I mentioned Brady before. I mean, you look at the Bucks right now. They're struggling a little bit on offense. They've had some injuries, but they've had some injuries in the offensive line, and Brady's not going to run, so he's taking more hits probably this year than he's taken in a lot of years. I think that idea of having an athletic quarterback that can move and do those things. Now, which is the right one? Again, can you hit on it? Obviously, the Eagles seem to have hit on it, at this point.
Well, it doesn't hurt to have the best offensive line also protecting Jalen Hurts. And I know I was going through your coaching history, and I saw you did start as an offensive line coach, early on in the '80s. There, I mean, it's got to make. I mean, you look at Justin Fields and you look at Jalen Hurts, and I don't know a lot about the Bears' offensive line, but the Eagles' offensive line has given Jalen Hurts that confidence to stay back there. Like, whereas in previous years he might have gotten happy feet, taken off and ran. He's confident that he could stay back there and go through his reads and his progressions. Having an amazing offensive line, I think, is something that is underappreciated in the NFL. Because, I mean, you look at the Eagles. I mean, it's got to be ranked one of, if not the best offensive lines in football right now.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that everybody in the NFL knows if you don't win up front, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to win. Now, maybe the Bengals last year, I mean, their offensive line didn't perform the greatest, and of course, they had such tremendous skill players in Joe Burrows that they were able to get to the Super Bowl. But they went to upgrade, and it took them a few weeks to get to mesh all those guys together. But they've been playing very well as of late. But you're right. I mean, and I've coached everything, and I mean, I've had quarterbacks throw for 5,000 yards in a single season in the college level. But if you can't protect them, it doesn't really matter. You can draw up the greatest plays and have the greatest schemes. If those guys up front can't get the job done, it doesn't matter. And that's again, why are the Eagles playing so very, very well? They're what, number 2 or 3 in the NFL on defense. They've got a great offensive line. They can run the football, which, as much as we like to pass and we like to do all that stuff, even with me throwing the football all over the place, I knew that sometime, some point, we're going to have to run the football to win. And if you're going to, win a Super Bowl and you got to get through those cold weather games in January, you better be able to run the football. And the Eagles have so far proven that they can do that. And I think that's a credit to their offensive line. But yeah, you got to be able to win up front. I mean, you got to be able to win up front on defense. That's one of the reasons the Eagles so good at defense is their front seven. Is playing so well. I mean, I watched what they did to the Giants last week. Oh my gosh! I mean, and the Giants aren't that bad on offense, and they just shut them down. And I don't know. I mean, the score was whatever it was, 48-22. But I mean, that was the Giants' offense did nothing for most of the game last week.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
honestly,
that's a testament to the defense as well.
Yeah, I was literally thinking while I was watching that Eagles Giants game, how are the Giants a 7-4 team? Like, it just looked like night and day comparing, where the Eagles are to the Giants. And like you said, the Giants aren't a bad team. They're just night and day difference on where they are versus the Eagles. And I said that, coaching matters. And Brian Dabble, the coach of the Giants, is someone that I actually wanted originally with Philadelphia when we were doing our coaching search. And he's got them playing as a team better. I mean, they've got a long way to go development wise, but I think that just last week was a perfect testament of just how much different the Eagles are compared to the rest of at least the NFC and the teams that we've been playing, because the talent there is just night and day.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, it's, you can talk about, your quarterback playing and being a leader in the development and everything, but you really have to look at all the pieces as they fit together. And the Eagles have done a very good job building this football team that they have right now, and it's one of the reasons why they're 12-1 now. I mean, as well as I do, anything can happen once you get to a playoff situation. How many times have we seen the sixth seed, go to the Super Bowl? I mean, anything can happen in the playoffs, but the Eagles are definitely in a very good position, and it's because of not only just having a quarterback that can execute the offense, but having a great offensive line, having that running back that can get those tough yards, having more than one receiver that can be a playmaker, playing great defense. I mean, they put it all together. I would say the only thing I was looking through the Eagles stats yesterday, getting ready to talk to you this morning, and and again, because I don't see them every week, I just noticed special teams wise they were down the list a little bit. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but
It's
tell you what,
an issue.
but tell you what, defensively and offensively, I mean, they've got it going right now.
Yeah. Yes, no, special teams have been our weak spot, and we lost our punter for probably the rest of the year last week. He took a pretty bad hit, against the Giants. So, yeah, special teams are not good, but I kind of feel like, I kind of feel like people shouldn't overlook any aspect of a football team. The offensive line, the quarterback, the special teams, everything is important. But I feel like Eagles fans are overlooking it. And you think about it, maybe it doesn't happen every year, but special teams can change the outcome of a game. I mean, you had Desmond Howard with the Packers, back in the day, returning the opening kickoff of a Super Bowl. Special teams can come back to bite you in the ass if you're not, 100% across the board.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, we're talking small college football,
Yeah.
but we were playing our rival some years ago and getting ready, and it was the winner of the game was going to be a conference champ, was going to get the automatic berth into the playoffs and all that good stuff. And what the rival coach said in the local paper said, you know what? He said we both have great offenses, we both got great defenses. He said it's going to be decided on special teams. And he said our team, this was the best coach special teams units that we've played against. And in that game, I mean, our punter put 6 punts inside the 10-yard line. Flipped the field. We converted all of our field goals. We had our kick coverage was all inside the 25-yard line. And that was something that I felt was very, very important, as a head coach, that, we were going to be great on special teams. And, it's different in college than it is in the NFL. But as a head coach, I always coached on special teams because I wanted the players to know, hey, this is really important. We're going to do this and we're going to do it very, very well. And as you said, those are the things you get into a playoff situation. Is it a blocked punt? Is it a blocked field goal? All of those things can be the difference in winning a playoff game and going to the Super Bowl and getting beat.
So I got a coaching type question here because you bring up special teams. There's been a few incidents across the team that some of these coaches on the Eagles, whether it's Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator, Nick Sirianni, or special teams that are stubborn. Like we as fans see, hey, this is a problem, but they keep doing it. And you mentioned special teams, and they've got this young kid, Britton Covey, from BYU, who's their return guy. And he's obviously he went to BYU, then he had to take time off for his mission. As the Mormons go on their mission every, after college, and he hasn't played football in a while. And this year he made a miraculous run from preseason, an undrafted guy, got on the roster. He's just not ready. But yet it has taken them 12 weeks, and they finally have moved off of him. What's going in a coach's head that they make a decision, this is going to be our guy, but yet it wasn't working out, and why it takes so long for a coach to I don't want to say that the coaches didn't want to admit that they were wrong there, but that's almost what it seems like to the fans' perspective, that the coaches are being stubborn because we said this is the guy, he's not, but no, we still think he's the guy.
Well, sometimes you do want to give a player like that a chance to develop, and sometimes you look and say, is there somebody on our roster that's better? Is there somebody that's shown up in practice that can be better? I mean, the Bears went through this early with Velus Jones, who is a tremendous athlete, and he fumbled a couple of punt returns, and they finally ended up moving on, but it took them a few weeks to do it. I think that's the nature. Again, you're looking at limited rosters. You're looking at how you set your roster up. It's not like a college program where you've got 5 capable returners standing back there, and you can say, okay, well, Joe didn't get it done, so Jimmy's going in next. It's not always the case. What you can do, in the NFL, sometimes you have to give those guys an opportunity to play. But then, then you have to look and say, man, we're not getting it done. We're turning the ball over. We're missing lanes on returns. We've got to make a change. But I think a lot of that goes into, again, that roster management part. I think a lot of times fans don't understand that. I mean, I'm not so sure I understood it until I got into coaching these alt developmental leagues the last couple of years, and our roster numbers were 38 and 40, and it's like, okay, yeah, I wish we had somebody better to put back there, but I don't have anybody. This guy's going to have to learn on the job and learn on the fly, to get it done. So I think you have to take that into consideration too. It's not like you can just reach down onto your 130-man roster like you can at Alabama and put somebody else in there.
Well, Alabama, they probably got like 20 guys that could fill in every single position. They don't struggle.
Okay, the Vanderbilt roster then. Okay.
Yeah, let's go to that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've got the Eagles got the Bears this week, and you're, like you said, you're a huge Bears fan. Growing up a Bears fan. Where is Justin Fields compared to Jalen Hurts? Obviously, Justin Fields, I think he's 6th in the league in rushing. I mean, he's got almost 1,000 yards rushing already. Obviously, his passing numbers aren't there, like you said. Maybe that's partly because of the wide receiver. They don't have an A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith like the Eagles do. But where is this Bears team, and where's Justin Fields, first off, at this point in his development?
Well, I think you can. I think he's gotten a lot better the last few weeks, and really, I think you talk about knowing your personnel and knowing what you had. I really think it took Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy a little bit to figure out what do we actually have here in Justin Fields, and the offense wasn't. I mean, that's like it's been incredibly productive. But they played that Thursday night game where they played awful, and then of course they had the week and a half off to come back, and they did some things with putting in some more run plays for Justin Fields. Or I should say maybe putting them in. They called them more. I'm sure they were in the offense. They called them more, trying to put Fields in a position where he could make some plays. Instead of it being 2nd and 9, Fields uses his legs, and it's 2nd and 3 now. I think he's developed, but I think the biggest thing that I've seen the last few weeks watching the Bears play is Fields has done such a much better job of keeping his eyes down the field. He's not just looking to go and run with the football, but he's also gotten smart enough, and he's reading coverages a little bit better. Where if he sees straight man coverage and they're not spying him, he's taking off if he's got an open lane to run through. And that's where, of course, he's gotten a lot of his really, really big plays is versus man coverage. So I think he's improving. I think they have to get him some weapons. I think Cole Kmet's going to be a very, very good tight end. I think we're going to be talking about him as one of he's not Travis Kelce yet, but I think he could put close to those types of numbers up if they can get some players around him, to say, okay, who are we going to cover? We're going to cover the outside, or we can cover Kmet, but I think he's gotten a lot better for sure. Now, whether they're good enough to beat the Eagles this week, that's obviously up for debate. I'm rooting for him, but I'm also realistic, from what I've seen as a coach.
So Justin Fields, obviously running quarterback, Jalen Hurts running quarterback. You see Kyler Murray go down this past week with the non-contact injury, and everybody's talking about the running quarterbacks, and you can't win with them because you're always at risk of them getting hurt. You kind of gotta, as a Bears fan with Justin Fields and us as Jalen Hurts guys, you kind of just gotta accept that risk. You can't tell them to not run completely. Yeah, you want them to get better as passers, but it's just an accepted risk, I guess, at this point. Is that the right way to phrase it? That you don't want to change. Like forever, the Eagles tried to change Donovan McNabb. They tried to force him to be something he wasn't, and then once they just let him loose and be who he was, they made a Super Bowl run with T.O. in 2004. You kind of just got to accept that risk when you're taking those kind of athletic quarterbacks?
Well, I think the thing that you have to do is you have to teach them when they're out running in the open field how to get down, how to slide. Now, the Kyle Murray thing, he's running out in the open field and it looked like his toe stuck. I mean, that can happen. That can happen in practice on Wednesday, those types of things. And you hate to see that. But, it was interesting way back, when I started in college coaching, and I worked for a guy who's was a legend, a small college coach. His name's Tom Beck. He's in the College Hall of Fame. Just a tremendous offensive mind. And, we'd run a little bit of option and throw the football back there in the 80s. And Tom always said, I've never really had a quarterback get hurt running out in the open field. When does he get hurt? He's standing in the pocket, and somebody comes from the blind side and just destroys him. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Now, yeah, our guy's going to take hits, and yeah, you've got you've got defensive players who are big and strong and can run. But you look at Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields. How many running backs are bigger than Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts? I mean, those are two big men. Or you look at Josh Allen, and I think it's about learning how to get down, learning how to lessen those types of hits. Because really, most of your quarterbacks, and I know Fields got hurt running the football this year, but I think part of it was he didn't slide, he went down and fell on his shoulder, and he was trying to get extra yards, and there's those things are definitely there, but I think most of the time when you see a quarterback get hurt, it's when he's standing in the pocket, and either he doesn't see something coming, or somebody comes in and rolls him up, or whatever. And again, it's just teaching the quarterbacks, but I think that's the nature of the game right now. And if you have an athletic quarterback, my gosh, use him. Because, and I use the example of Fields in those long runs. If you're going to play man coverage against Hurts or Fields and they have an opening, I mean, they're going to run forever. And so, you've got to be able to, obviously coach them how to take the hits, coach them what to do. But I mean, if I was in the NFL and I could get a quarterback like a Fields or a Hurts or a Josh Allen, I'm taking that guy. Patrick Mahomes, I'm taking that guy for sure, and we're going to live with it.
I also think that if you take those guys, you have to have, as a coach, developed a really good culture and a solid backup. Because we've seen it plenty of times. The quarterback goes down, a team falls apart. But then you see other situations. The Eagles, obviously, in 2017, a different quarterback in Carson Wentz, but he goes down. Nick Foles is able to step in, and the culture is right that they just don't miss it. Like, if you lose your running back, next man up. You lose your defensive tackle, next man up. Normally, when you lose a quarterback, it's not the same thing. You look at what San Francisco's doing. They've now lost multiple starting quarterbacks, and they just keep plugging and playing because they have a really good system, a really good culture that the rest of the team picks up the pieces when the quarterback goes down. I really truly do believe that if you have a good culture and a really good backup, that you just play the athletic quarterback however you want. Because if he does go down, if you've got the right pieces in place, you're going to be able to. Obviously, you'll have a drop off. Obviously, Gardner Minshew is not Jalen Hurts, but you should be able to
Yeah,
ma-
oh, I'm
maintain.
sorry. Yeah, and you're right. Now of course, here's the other. Excuse me. The other part though is it's hard to find those really good, backup quarterbacks. Obviously, Nick Foles, had really good experience even with Chip Kelly with the Eagles, and then was able to pick it up for Wentz, and they end up winning a Super Bowl. Whoever heard of Greg Purdy,
Yeah,
until the last few weeks, that was great evaluation, on the part of the 49ers staff. But I think you're right. It's being able to have that right backup that you can plug and play and put in there. And actually, I think the Bears had a good guy with Trevor Simeon until he got hurt in pregame warmups, for crying out loud. When Fields went down a few weeks ago, I thought he was the right guy to have in that situation for the Bears. But you're right. You've got to have that player. And I don't even know who the Eagles' backup quarterback is. But, just again, Nick Sirianni is a very smart and very calculating offensive football coach. So, you have to, again, give them credit that they're going to be able to put the right guy in the right spot. But that's a hard thing to do, though, in the NFL. And I mean, it happens in a couple of situations. I mean, Brady obviously got his chance way back, when and I'm going brain dead when the past quarterback got hurt. But
Bledsoe.
and obviously Purdy stepping up, is just been tremendous. I mean, he may be the 49ers quarterback in the future. Who knows? But yeah, that's a tough thing to do in the NFL. Again, is having that right backup, being able to pay him, all those sorts of things.
Gardner Minshew, former Jaguars star, is the
That's right, Gardner Minshew. Well, you know what? Now, Gardner Minshew isn't going to run, but you talk about a guy that can throw the football and make some things happen, and he showed that in Jacksonville with a bad football team. And again, he comes out of that Mike Leach tree. I mean, there's no doubt he can stand in there and throw the football.
Yeah, he had a very strong connection with Mike Leach. There were some interviews with him this week um about that here in Philadelphia. All right, so one final question. Back to the Eagles Bears. So you talk about Justin Fields and everything that he does well. If you were the coach devising the defense, I know you're an offensive mind, but if you're devising the defense, how the Eagles defense should stop Justin Fields, what are you doing?
Yeah, the connection broke up there a little bit. So what I would think of course, you look at the Bears offense, they're going to run the football, and they can also run the football without Justin Fields. David Montgomery can get some yards. The Bears offensive line has done very, very well run blocking. So it's not just about Fields running the football. So you can't just put your focus on Justin Fields. If I was the Eagles, what I would do is I try and stay away from man coverage because that's when Fields makes his plays. I would force the Bears to be able to, find holes in the zone, make some plays, throwing the football, into zone coverage. And I might think about putting a spy on Fields, but only in those long yardage situations. Because let's face it, I mean, athletes like Hurts and Fields, I don't care who you're putting out there, your best inside linebacker, or I'm sorry, your best running linebacker or safety, I mean, they're going to have a hard time making a play on a Fields or a Hurts in the open field. I mean, that's a really difficult thing to do. You may be better off just trying to keep them in the pocket, trying to force them to throw the football against zone coverage. Now, of course, the Eagles are going to be able to do that probably better than the Bears are. But if I'm on the Eagles defense, I'm not playing man coverage because I don't want Fields to take off and go for 75 yards because he's done that a couple of times this year. I want to force him to beat us throwing the ball into the zone. I want to try and keep him in the pocket and not give him many escape lanes, to get out. And then I also don't want to let David Montgomery, beat us because I think the worst thing the Eagles defense can do is let the Bears get consistently in the 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. That's when they've been most productive this year, when they've been able to then play action pass because they know they can run the football on 3rd down and to do those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, kind of basically what you're saying is basically exactly what Washington did. Our one loss this season. It's basically what Washington did. Set up 2nd and 3rd and shorts, run the ball effectively. The only thing is that the Eagles then saw their one weakness. Howie Roseman went out and got Linville Joseph and Ndamukong Suh off their couches and clogged up that middle, solved that problem, and kind of, since then we've been pretty much cruising. But yeah, I mean, if you stop the run on the Bears, I think it's a no-brainer on what to do. And I love what you're saying about not having a spy because everybody's so used to that term. I don't even know when the quarterback spy kind of started, in the NFL. But it
Michael
really
Vick.
Michael Vick
Vick.
was the first one that
Yeah.
we started spying. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's ever an effective game plan because
Yeah.
you're
Well,
spot
because
on.
you're taking
Guys
it.
have-
I'm sorry, Phil. I'm getting broken up here. I thought you were finished with your thought. It's that idea like, okay, we don't want this, whoever, Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, now you look at Josh Allen, whatever, to beat us. Well, Michael Vick was, wasn't as big as these guys today, but he was such a tremendous athlete that, I don't care who you were, you're going to have a hard time tackling him out in the open field. But now you've got Hurts, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Fields. They're all 6'4", 6'5", 240 some pounds. And these guys are, not only athletic and can make guys miss, they'll run you over in some spots too. So it's a difficult thing. And I think to me, I'd rather, like you said, if we're good enough up front that we can plug up the middle, if we can, make sure that we don't allow him to get outside, force him to step up, and then have a Sue or somebody else, in the middle, that big body that can again close down those running lanes, so we allow the pursuit to get there and make a play when they scramble. So it might hold them to 3 or 4 yards and not to 25. I think that's a much better deal. And again, you see so many teams they put the spy in there, they play man coverage. So now the spy's 1-on-1, and they're going to lose that battle 8 times out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. All right, so we're here. We're talking on Trending the AM with Coach Dale Carlson. What do you got going on right now? Are you still in the national the Major League Football League? Arkansas, I believe, was who you coached with most recently.
Yes, yeah, and then of course, unfortunately, like a lot of the spring leagues, they didn't make it because of financial issues. So we'll see. We're talking about playing again. This next spring. We were going to do it in the summer, play a 4-game season last summer in August. Talking about now playing in the spring. I think there's a spot for these types of leagues, and I'm not talking the XFL, the USFL. What MLFB is a truly developmental league, trying to get players an opportunity to get some film, to get evaluated, to have an opportunity to step up and play at the next level, but also make a little bit of money at it as well. And so I think there's definitely a place for it because I'm telling you there are so many good football players out there, Phil, that just don't get an opportunity. And if you can give them a competitive chance, who knows what's going to happen? That's where the spring league that ended up morphing into USFL. The team that we played on, we had 2 or 3 players end up in the CFL off that team that played. I had 3 wide receivers that I coached get into NFL camps. I had one that ended up playing in the CFL as well. So it was an opportunity for those guys just to get exposure and get a chance to step up and whether they get paid in the USFL, the XFL, the CFL, or maybe even make it to an NFL roster, who knows? But I think there's a place for all those things, but finances, it comes down to making sure you're financed well and you're ready to go. So I hope we get to play
Right.
this spring. I hope it happens.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, the work you guys do, and I've talked in you're part of the pro level agents, group of guys over there, and I've talked to a lot of the coaches over there before, and the work you guys do, helping develop these players. I mean, it's great. It's the love of the game and wanting to see the game progress and get better. So I love
Yeah.
seeing all that stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, again, for the most part, I had one, Division 1 FCS head coaching job. I was a small college guy, head coach, but I was always trying to, develop people, and so at Tri-State University, Ohio Dominican, I developed some very good football players who ended up being either really good coaches, engineers, doctors, lawyers, whatever. To me, going through these developmental leagues, the spring league, MLFB, it's the same thing. We're trying to develop them to give them a chance maybe to step it up in their football career. So I guess that's that teacher in me, just trying to help guys get better and achieve a dream.
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on again this morning. This has been a lot of fun. You obviously you've probably forgotten more about football than I know about, football so well. So I really agree, really greatly appreciate your time. I want to wish you, your family, happy holidays, happy New Year, Coach Dale. And I can't wait to have you back on again in the future.
Anytime, Phil. I'm always enjoy sitting down and talking to you. It's a lot of fun. And again, to you and to all your viewers and all your staff over there, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
You too have a great holiday, and again, go Eagles. Beat those Bears this weekend.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep, thank you. All right, so that was Coach Dale Carlson. Again, greatly appreciate it. We're going to take a quick pause in the action here. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of their 2 great locations, Fishtown and Old City. Book your appointment today. They own the Crafted Shows, rated the #1 barbershop in the Philadelphia area on Yelp. Able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. And we're back here trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. Like I said, I much appreciate Coach Dale Carlson's time. The guy's got some great knowledge and great insight. And, I'm going to go back and re-listen to this interview after the show. But, I mean, some of the things he said about Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, it's reaffirming because it's not like he's an Eagles fan. He doesn't have that Eagles bias. And the things that we see with this team, him as an outsider seeing it and appreciating and understanding it and giving us that different perspective is really great to see. So we're going to wrap up the show right there a little early this morning. Again, shout out to Coach Dale Carlson. Greatly appreciate his time. Make sure you're liking the show, subscribing on the DSM Media YouTube page, and yeah, Nick Sirianni, coaching like a 40-year-old vet. Like, comment, subscribe. I really greatly appreciate it. Everybody, have a great day. It's messy out there. It's going to rain a lot today. Parts of the Philadelphia area covered in snow, parts just wet. Just be careful if you're out there. We greatly appreciate that. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, continuing the breakdown of Eagles Bears. Maybe we'll get some Sixers conversation into the fold tomorrow. But everybody have a great Thursday. Be safe out there, and go Birds.